What's up guys, Roddy here, and today we're going to talk about this guy, the OnePlus Open, considered one of the best, if not the best, folding form factor phones. So let's go. Hey guys, in true form and fashion, if you've not done so already, jump down there, hit that subscribe button. If you've done it, you're awesome. And today we're talking about the OnePlus Open. I got this phone kind of late. I was kind of on the fence, kind of nervous about getting a OnePlus device. Got the OnePlus 12, absolutely love that phone. So when I found one of these on Facebook Marketplace for $650, I had to jump on it. This phone was in perfect condition, no damage, came with the box, came with everything in the box. I mean, there's not a scratch, a scuff, nothing on this phone. And I have been thoroughly impressed. So we're gonna talk about all the fun things of this device, whether or not I recommend it. Should you wait? Should you check out the new Apex edition that came out? We're going to talk about all that. So first things first, we have to talk about this design, and we're going to talk about it folded first. So really good feel, fit, and finish in the hand. OnePlus went with more flat sides here. Even though it is a thin phone, you still got really thin when it's unfolded like this. It's really thin. Close together though, this feels more like a slab phone. It's very, very close. We're getting ever so close. It's definitely going to be thinner, lighter than a Pixel Fold or any of the Samsung Fold variants. It's got that just that overall standard kind of slab phone feel when you're holding it closed. The only real drawback here, and I don't know if OnePlus is ever going to fix this or not, it's kind of become signature to their design, and because this shares the same platform as Oppo, you've got this massive camera bump on the back, and you still just have 3 big lenses in there, and the rest of it is just kind of like a facade. And I get it, they're kind of going for that regular camera look where you have this big round circular thing. That's what you get with cameras, so that's what they're going for here. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I like it better than cameras being shoved in a corner. But it does take up a lot of space on the back. It is very, very large. You can't not notice it, but it is centered so it doesn't wobble if you're trying to lay it on a table and type on it. Everything else is pretty good. The only thing that I don't like on these phones that are the standard kind of size, so far Samsung's the only one that's been able to do it. Again, they've got a weird front aspect ratio, I get that, but it's these corners. The new Pixel Fold that's coming out also has it, and it's where this side of the phone is real round like a normal phone. This side over here where the hinge is gets squared off. And so you get this weird, like you've got the normal screen, but then like where the hinge kind of attaches to the phone is more squared there. I don't know if I can get that on camera. There we go. Yeah, see how that's kind of squared versus round? It's kind of a weird thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. But again, it's a preference thing. Most people won't be bothered by it, especially if you throw a case on this. It's a lot less noticeable. But overall, I think a really good design. Again, not a huge fan of the glossy side rails. They could go matte. But I think all of these things are very, very minor because this hardware feels and acts really, really good. Now, I've seen some people talk about they've had some screen damage. Most people talk about that if they have a foldable, so none of them get a pass. But outside of that, like I said, being that this device was used and had been used for a few months in the hands of someone else and then they passed it along to me, I've had no issues, they've had no issues. I think the phone has done really, really good. Opening up, you do get almost no crease. It's almost impossible to see it. You also get more of a flat display here. It's not quite as glossy as Samsung and Google. So the crease is almost gone. You almost can't feel it. You can't hardly notice the glare. It's not super glossy like the others. You've got symmetrical bezels all the way around. So all in all, design-wise, very, very, very good. They put everything on one side. Your fingerprint reader is in the power button. You've got your volume rocker up and down on the side is just one big button, and then you also have your alert slider, which you can turn on and off and do all the fun things. The thing that I do like most about this over the OnePlus 12 is that this, in my hand, is a lot easier. It's a little shorter than a typical phone, so it's easy for me to get to that alert slider and all with one hand. I can still, as you can see, reach all the way across. And with this big massive camera bump where you normally rest your finger, if you are trying to reach to the top of the screen, you get that little bit more support. So it's a very nice, very good, comfortable design. I wish they'd give us some matte rails. That would be really nice, but I think overall they could kind of keep this. Maybe if they're going to keep the large camera bump, they can incorporate it into the design a little bit more. But overall, I really, really did like this phone and have really enjoyed it. Just wish that they could kind of clean it up, make it a little bit more pretty. Moving on from the design, we're going to talk about performance, and that's where this phone gets interesting. So with it closed, of course, you're getting a normal, typical phone experience. Really good screens. They're really bright. They're very ergonomic, very easy to use. This has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which we know it was great for in its regards to being very efficient. It's still pretty fast, and everything here feels and looks just like it does on most normal phones on the market. There's not really anything different here. This Oxygen OS, Color OS kind of look and feel is very similar to me in my opinion. It feels a lot like what we get from Google, but with some of the aesthetics that you get from One UI and Samsung. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You don't get a lot of that Apple feel here like you do on some other phones that are trying to imitate Apple. It doesn't feel like they're trying to push that. It feels very good, very smooth. I haven't had any lag or any issues. I haven't had any trouble with anything. However, this phone is supposed to have, some cooling and stuff in there. I can tell you that if you're doing anything real intense like uploading or downloading pictures, when I first turned this on, booting it up, transferring my data over from one phone to the other, trying to get my contacts and messages and pictures and all that kind of stuff, or getting all of that from the cloud, it got considerably warm. Which again kind of makes you nervous when it comes to battery life. Which we'll talk about in a minute. But overall, as far as performance goes, everything performed and worked really, really smooth. I didn't have any issues with screens. I didn't have any issues with crashing. I didn't have any issues with lag. Again, this phone is like 2 for 2. Really good design, lightweight, matte finished back, all this kind of stuff. Then you go into the performance and how it works, just the UI of it, how this software interacts. I can't tell a huge difference. There wasn't anything there when it's closed that I could tell was a big difference from any other slab phone that's out there running Android. It's when you open the device that you start seeing where this is a lot different than other things out there. So in the ways that Samsung kind of does their multitasking, you can do split screen, and then you can add like a screen on the bottom. You can move them around, that sort of thing. Here, OnePlus takes this whole new approach, this open approach, to where you can shrink three panels onto one screen, or you can endlessly kind of scroll, or you can have 2 up above you and 1 on the bottom, 1 up at top, 2 in the bottom, 1 off to the side, 2 in this screen. They kind of start moving around this whole outside of the phone feel. And so this open kind of take, it's different than what you're used to, and I think it's a little different than what most people are used to from a tablet standpoint, from a phone standpoint, from a foldable standpoint, even as far over as like a desktop type feel. I have had 2 screens before, and I've had that kind of sort of feel, but nothing where it's like, oh, I've got a little sliver of something off to the side. What is that? Oh, that's this application. I forgot that was running. Or let me put this off to the side and use these two and then bring this back over when I need it. Of course, you can do floating and things like that. And everything else pretty much gives you kind of a similar tablet feel. You've got a dock at the bottom. This does not let you have a custom outer display and a custom inner display. This basically is just expanding that inner display where you'd swipe over to your next panel. You get 2 panels here. And then same with the bottom here. You get 4 dedicated apps you can pin to this kind of dashboard. Over here you've got your files, and then this is an app drawer that pulls up your apps, and then most recent apps would fall over here. So like if we wanted to pull some apps up, you know, it would then throw that app over there to that side. So it's really nice. It works really well. It has a bit of a learning curve. I think when most people get used to it, they really like it because, one, it's very fluid and it gives you a ton of customization options inside of it. For me personally, I felt like it was too open. I know that doesn't make any sense probably to most people, so I'll try to unpack that as quickly as I can. But ultimately, it was kind of like, when I want to multitask, I kind of want everything on that one screen, and I want to be able to move those screens around, but I want it to stay inside of the screen. There's a reason I've got 3 apps open, is because I want to see and interact with all of those 3 different things while I'm doing something. I know you can only use one at a time, but if I've got my calculator over here and I've got my email here and then I've got a spreadsheet down here and I'm interacting with these and looking back at the email, I don't want to have to like flick one over or flick the other one down, or I don't want to go back and forth and have to do a lot of motion. I just kind of want them there where I can kind of see all of them and interact with them. And you don't get a lot of that here. You're getting a lot more motion. Some people like it because they have 2 apps that they're mostly interacting with. If they need to go back to one, they can open it and it's on this big screen, or they can pull it over. Or if you want all 3 side by side, you can do this and then you've got them all 3 lined up. But again, they're all sharing this space, and a lot of times you get the bars. Also, same with content. When you're viewing of any kind of videos or anything that's in a 16:9 landscape view, mostly media consumption of any kind, you get those large black bars. And because this is more of a square design, it's not really a rectangular design, you get bars at the top and the bottom, and it's almost the same as if you had just a normal slab phone on top of it. You're getting the same amount of retail, you know, screen retail. I did notice a few apps, mostly social media, that had a problem with resizing between the inner display and the outer display. I don't think a lot of people have talked about that. Maybe they didn't notice it, but I noticed it because I kind of live in that world all the time. But I would notice where, like, if I was scrolling on Facebook and I'd close the app and continue on the outer display, some stuff was running off the end of the screen, and I could close it, open it back up, and I could tell that stuff had been slightly shrunken down and resized. I had that happen multiple times on multiple apps, and usually it was social media. Again, we're still in the infancy of foldables, so I won't fault the phone for that as much as it is the app, and a lot of people say it's probably not that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker, it's not important. It is something that I've noticed on the OnePlus more than I've noticed on any other device. In fact, I can't remember a device that did that. I also noticed some strange interactions within apps that I don't normally have issues with on other devices, even foldables that I had here. Things like not staying logged in, not remembering things, not staying connected to things like smartwatches or earbuds. Noticing that certain apps like my A-Word from Amazon, my Fire TV and stuff was having some glitches and some hiccups, and I was trying to do stuff on here and it was not working, and I grabbed my iPhone and it worked, and then I went and said, well, let me try it on my S24 Ultra, and it worked, and it wasn't working on here. So again, Not really sure what that is. Also noticed that I'd go in to see if the Play Store had updates for those apps. Maybe there's a glitch or something. Again, not there. So I've just not been super pleased and happy with some of the performance of apps on this device. Don't know if that's because it's a OnePlus and it's China and it's fighting that America-China thing. Not really sure if that's it. Not sure if it's maybe multitasking is struggling a little bit or what. But all I'm going to say is there's been multiple things where I had issues with, even down to things like inside the Google texting app, and getting my contacts and stuff like that. Or the biggest one was getting a text message while I'm driving using Android Auto, respond via Google, and it not sending the message. It said it was sent in the car, but then when I'd open it back up, because the person I sent it to didn't reply, it wasn't in the messages. So I'm not really sure what that is going on there, but I can tell you that it seems very unpolished. And I think that there were times where I saw more of that in this device. Things like going in and resizing down text, because I would be inside of Gmail or I would be inside of one of my messaging apps like Slack or something like that, and I felt like all the letters were really close to each other and jumbled. I was like, I need a little more space to see like those different conversations, and I would go shrink the text down and go back, and they were still that way. But I'd go to other apps and they were so small I could barely read them. So it was like there's a lot of inconsistencies, unfortunately, from what I've seen in my experience. And I know it's probably nitpicking, but I feel like it's worth mentioning because it did kind of take away from my experience, especially since I've also been using the Z Fold 6 now for about a month, and I had this about 2 or 3 weeks before that. I just felt myself really missing some of the things that I got from One UI, some of the things I got from iOS, and there were just so many inconsistencies inside of the software that I was just kind of like, I know it's probably preference, but it just really kind of spoiled the experience. Not in a bad way. I really look forward to the future iterations of this, but I think as a first gen out of the box, they did nearly everything right. Your form factor is really good. It could use a little more polish, but it's pretty decent. Again, I know it comes down to preference, but in my opinion, I think it's one of the best foldables you can get. When it comes to battery life, definitely one of the best foldables, not the best foldable that you can get. Love that it's got fast charging. Love the screen. Love the way that the hinge interacts. Love the flat screen. There's just, I think, in my opinion, personally, there's more to love here than the cons. But the thing that you can't get over, in my opinion, that I had to interact with every day that kind of caused some frustration was the inconsistency in the software and how it interacted with apps within the software. So ultimately, gonna keep the Open around because I do find myself wanting to go back to it and wanting that bigger display. The cameras here, to me, weren't as good as everybody said they were. I was kind of disappointed in that. To the effect of low light, even dim light, really takes a toll on this thing. Video wasn't that great. The audio quality from the phone was okay, but not spectacular. And I don't know, again, saw more of those inconsistencies like I've seen in other devices that I've complained about in the past. The auto HDR is just way too strong. I found myself cutting that off a lot. I love the X-Pan mode in the camera, but ultimately, again, I think it's a good first step in the right direction. And I would say probably it is the most overall well-rounded foldable that you can get out there, especially considering the price. Right now you can get this thing for about $1,400. Even when it came out, it was still only about $1,700 or $1,800. It's about $100, if not $200 to $300 below the competition. And I would say it definitely has the least amount of compromises. I would say one of the big ones for me was no wireless charging. I have a ton of wireless chargers all over the place. I have very few wired chargers or places to plug in, and I hate cords. So for me, it just made a lot more sense. But ultimately, dealing with the software, and I wanted to make sure, I switched over to the Fold 6, been using it a month, said I'm gonna take my SIM card out, put it back in here one more time, see if I miss it. I did, I pulled it out, and just want to say, OnePlus, you have a fantastic phone. It is one of the most well-rounded folding phones out there. It's definitely going to give you a lot on paper that is a lot more attractive than some of the other things. But if you want something that you can carry around that feels like a normal phone, that has some amazing battery, and that has decent cameras with a different software experience, then this will be a great device for you, especially considering it is so affordable. However, I would not recommend this if this is your first folding phone. I don't think it's a good transition. I still think Google, especially the new one that's coming out that's this form factor, I know it's expensive, but to me it's a better going from a slab phone to a folding phone. I would recommend the Samsung Fold 6 over this simply because the software is a lot cleaner, and I think it's more intuitive to how people are used to using a tablet, how they're used to multitasking. I feel like it's got a little bit better performance and speed there, and it also, to me, feels like it's just a little more polished on that software front. But if you need that larger outer display, you got to go with this or the Pixel. And if that's the main thing that you're looking for, this is definitely the better phone. That's going to do it for me, guys. I know it's a long one, but folding phones usually are, because you got a lot to talk about. Hope that helps you make a decision. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this still worth buying here in 2024, late in 2024? Should you wait till next year to get one of these? Or are you thinking about getting a Fold 6 or one of the new Pixel Fold Pros? Let me know in those comments. And for now, I'm Roddy. See you next time. Moving on. Waiting for the truck to get away.